So this book, Ratio, was one of the first books that I read that really opened my mind to a different way of cooking. Instead of getting bogged down in looking at specific recipes, it allows you to think of how you put recipes together. That's how much oil goes in, that's how much sugar goes in, that's how much salt goes in. To learn, I'm going to take you through all the recipes that I find most useful from it today. Starting with a mayonnaise. 1 part egg yolk, 20 parts oil. Start by weighing out your egg yolk. These ratios are just a framework, so what I'm actually just going to do is just add in a little bit of lemon juice before I start blending it in, splash of vinegar, and a little hit of Dijon. Slowly trickle in your oil. So typically speaking, the faster you put your oil in, the looser the emulsion's going to be. You want to go nice and slow at the beginning, and then don't speed up too much. Slowly trickle in the rest of your oil until you get this really beautiful, glossy, thick texture. Just to really simple, make this a nice garlic aioli. 1 fresh piece of garlic. So you get that sort of nice raw heat from the garlic as well. Just add in a touch of salt. That's perfect basic mayonnaise recipe. You came back home, you want a snack, you've got some oven chips, 1 part egg yolk, 20 parts oil. Make yourselves some chips and garlic mayo. Or, indeed, go to Mornay's and they do it there too. The classic French dressing is really simple. It's just 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar to 0.5 parts Dijon mustard. Slowly emulsifying those together. So our fat is going to help to bind and emulsify the dressing. We're using rapeseed oil, but you could replace this with a different neutral oil. Our vinegar will let it down, add a nice acidity to it. And then you can see the Dijon has this just property that basically thickens things up, so it emulsifies. But this is what we want from a sort of standard vinaigrette, nice and loose. And then as a base recipe, it's kind of up to you what you want to do with that. You can just go in there with a touch of lemon juice, and sometimes you want to make that into a shallot dressing. We'll just add a small amount of brunoise shallot. So let's just show you how to make this into a really nice salad. Got a few croutons in there. Got these beautiful in-season colourful tomatoes, good hit of pepper, nice bit of the vinaigrette. Dress those tomatoes, dress those croutons, really easy. Leaves go in as well, and then once that's in, just toss it rather than bashing it around with your spoon. Place your tomatoes and croutons. Very simple tomato salad. 3 parts oil, 1 part vinegar, 0.5 Dijon mustard, and you can see how quickly a really beautiful tomato or panzanella salad can come together. Pickles, 4 part vinegar, 2 parts water, 1 part sugar. Obviously pickling's just a really, really good way to use up anything you might have left over, but also a great pantry ingredient to have. You can mix up the vinegars you're using here. I'm using a really good quality sweet vinegar, 200 water, and 1 part sugar. Today I'm just going to do some pickled shallots. These perfect little rounds, and then just into some water before they go into the pickle. So what water does when you're pickling something, especially onions, is it just takes away the raw sort of allium flavour, which over time in a pickle can get a little bit sort of acrid. So it's a really good tip, but always rinse shallots or onions before they go into a pickle. Now you can add some different aromats to it. If you wanted to add some sort of a bit of spice to it, you could add some peppercorns whilst it comes to the boil. You could add a bay leaf. You could add some nutmeg, you could add lots of different things, but the base ratio stays the same. And then you can add your pickle hot or cold. Cold will actually help preserve a bit of the colour, but hot will help it pickle quicker. Squeeze out some of that water, otherwise it'll mess around with the ratio. Warm pickle just goes over the top, just should fully submerge whatever you're trying to pickle. Little cartouche goes over the top. This just helps create a little barrier between whatever you're trying to pickle and the air, which will again help make sure that you don't get any sort of nasties inside your pickle, and they'll last for a lot longer. These have rested for 24 hours. This is what we use in the restaurant. Exactly the same recipe that we've just done. This is how we use them. So this is one of our most popular dishes, our mushroom parfait. Nice bit of that on the board. Marinated mushrooms on there first. A generous helping of our pickled shallots. So these have just sat here for 24 hours. You can see what they've done. They've just softened slightly. So this is our mushroom parfait. Pickled shallot is probably one of the most versatile things, and this pickling recipe is pretty much the most versatile pickle recipe you can get. Pickles, 4, 2, 1. Okay, next up is actually a recipe that I use all the time at home. It's 3 parts, whatever you want to turn into your hot sauce, onion, some chilies, and some garlic. 2 parts vinegar, and 0.1 salt. Let's give this a really good blitz, turn into our hot sauce. Right, so there we go. So this is our blitzed hot sauce. Now you can pass this off, or to be quite honest, you can just leave it nice and chunky like that. I'm just going to taste it. It's got a really nice bite, and it's quite a versatile base. So just add in a little bit of fresh lime in there, and I'm just going to add in some coriander stalks. So there we have it, really easy. 3 parts chilies, 2 parts vinegar, 0.1 salt, and then whatever the hell you want to add in there. So ultimate thing to serve your homemade hot sauce on. A nice sunny day, and you got a nice couple of bottles of average supermarket lager, some beautiful oysters. Just serve them with a little bit of lemon, and depending on your tolerance to heat, a good amount of that hot sauce. Whoa, it's got a kick. The marinade, 2 parts yogurt, then we would do 1 part acid. In this case, I'm going to use lemon juice, 1 part fat. This is a really versatile recipe. You can use this to marinate all kinds of meat. It works really, really well with lamb as well. So you can add a tiny bit of sugar if you want a little bit of char. You can add a tiny bit of salt. That's only going to help season it all up. And then you could add some garlic, some thyme, or some dried oregano to that. Just going to add some of that hot sauce that we made earlier. And then this is a perfect little marinade for chicken thigh. So straight in, and any sort of yogurt marinade, ideally you want to let it marinate for at least a minimum of 6 to 8 hours, but ideally 24 hours is going to work even better. Okay, so this is our chicken. Been in the marinade now for about 8 hours, and just going to whack it on the grill. Well, you can see already that the meat is a lot more tender than it was. It's a little bit paler because of that. That's the salt getting in there, that's the yogurt and the lemon already doing some of the heavy lifting, tenderizing that outside. Really nice charred flavor. Awesome. So chicken, really nicely caramelized, beautifully grilled. You've got a little bit more of that yogurt marinade on there. I can already feel it's quite tender to touch. Super tender chicken, a few pickled chilies. Perfect little yogurt marinade, good for lamb, pork, or chicken. Just change what you're going to put in there. 2 parts yogurt, 1 part acid, 1 part fat. It came to our attention while doing this video that actually a lot of people don't know the very simple ratio that goes behind a bechamel sauce. So 1 part flour, 1 part butter, and 10 parts milk. So add in your butter and just allow this to go like just slightly nutty. That's going to add a nice depth of flavor to the roux. At this point we add in our flour. And what we want to do is cook this until it looks just a little bit like wet sand. That's what you're looking for. It's beautiful wet sand technique. Nice and golden. That means that you're going to have a bit more color, depth of flavor to your roux. If you've got 100 grams of butter, you're basically just adding a full litre of milk. And this milk has just been pre-warmed. Add it in thirds. So third goes in at the beginning, and then give it a good mix. You can always tell a good bechamel the milk's been incorporated properly because it'll be incredibly smooth. You're working it to the point where all of that is basically completely lump free. So second lot of milk goes in. Now it's important, like obviously this ratio, there's still an element of cooking here. So if you want a really nice thick bechamel, you can easily stop here and then just cook it out until it gets to the desired consistency. You're looking for this beautiful, smooth, clean, glossy consistency. So this has been cooking now for about 4 or 5 minutes. It's important that you don't let it boil too much because it will stick on the bottom of the pan. But you can see as it bubbles away, the flour will be cooking out of this roux. Just taste this now. It's really nice and smooth. And what I'm doing is just pressing that against the roof of my mouth just to see if there's any floury mouthfeel. And if there's not, that means you've cooked it down nicely. To make it into a Mornay, all you need to do is add in the same amount of cheese as the roux. In this case, it was 100 grams of flour, 100 grams of butter, so I'm going to add 200 grams of cheese. Nice little season at the end. And then how I always finish my Mornay is with a little bit of sherry vinegar when it's off the heat. So a perfectly smooth, silky Mornay sauce. Perfect consistency for a lasagna, or in this case here, just a little blanco base on a pizza. A little bit of our house-made mortadella, some hazelnuts, a little bit of cheese, and some torn basil. There we go, that's our flatbread from Roux. 1-1-10-2 Mornay sauce. So next ratio we're going to talk about is Hollandaise. Quite a specific sauce, one of the sort of foundational sauces. 5 parts clarified butter, 1 part egg yolk, 1 part liquid. Now the liquid is important. In here I've got 10 grams of vinegar. And I'm also just going to add 10 grams of water. So if you add too much fat, it will split. If you don't add enough fat, it won't be a nice thick, luxurious Hollandaise sauce. When you're making a Hollandaise, the first thing that we're going to do is you make something called a sabayon, which is a light, frothy egg mix. You can actually turn your bain-marie off at this stage. It's still just got nice residual heat in there, and then you can just start to slowly trickle in your melted butter. As you kind of near the end of the amount of butter, you can start to taste your sauce and just add in any sort of adjustments that you want now. This means that if you want more acidity in the final product, you don't have to let it down and ruin that consistency that you've tried to achieve. So I just added my lemon juice. Okay, so there we have it. To your base hollandaise, you can just add a little bit of parsley, a couple of chives, give it a nice mix, then just use that spoon over poached eggs. There you go, 5, 1, 1. Okay, next ratio is all about meat. For a bolognese, for meatballs, for a burger, anything that's minced, that's brought together, you want to be looking for at least 28 to 30% fat content. Some people, I think, overcomplicate making meatballs or stuff like that. That's a kilo of meat. I always add a little bit of minced garlic. If you're ever unsure about the amount of salt, it's roughly 10 grams, which is a large pinch. Instead of adding egg yolks, I add a little bit of oil to bind, some fresh herbs as well to run through the mix. This is just a little bit of torn fresh oregano, which gives a really nice flavor to things like koftas, kebabs, burger, anything like that. It's just important you give this a really good mix. This just incorporates the salt, but also forms the consistency and texture of the finished meatball. So a lot of recipes call for breadcrumbs, egg yolks, things like that to bind. I've actually never found that you needed that. I actually think that it affects the flavor of the meatball. I think this process of just mixing it together, make sure your meat's nice and cool, will add enough sort of cohesion to any sort of meat mix that you're making. And that's it. That's kind of what you're looking for your meatball mix. It should be like a shaggy, sort of homogeneous, nice sort of fatty, marbled mix. And then just tiny little bit of cold water will just help the process of bringing them together. Okay, so to do our meatballs, one more season, lay them into a pan. Tiny splash of oil, but just remember how much fat is in that meat. So you don't need a huge amount. And then just build them around in a circular motion. This is the way that you're gonna flip them. They're holding together really nicely, without all that fucking breadcrumb and egg yolk nonsense that you always get taught. Okay, so great, we've got a really nice colour on all of our meatballs now. Adding in some very thin slithers of garlic, in with some beef stock and some passata. And then we're just gonna cook and reduce that all together, and it'll make a really nice, thick, rich marinara sauce. Oh, look at those bad boys. So make yourself a little meatball sub flatbread. Ratio for the meat, very simple, 3 parts fat, 7 parts meat, so 30% fat. There's no easy way to do this. I feel like Joey Tribbiani.